Let's see if we can get this thing rocking and rolling. Let's see. Oh yeah, let me put the invite up first. Check my mic and make sure it's on the headset. Open up something from the book of Acts that I wanted to read. Oh, wait a minute. Let's see. Let me back up here. There we go. Acts 8, verse 1. And then also let me open up 1 Timothy that I also wanted to throw in here for fun and entertainment value. There's 2 Timothy, 1 Timothy. Hang on, I'm almost there. Let me see, this is chapter 6, I believe. Yep. So I am going to oh, I know what I can do. No, I'll do this. Yeah, let me think. Okay, I think I'm ready. And I was waiting for Jeremy. He was going to join me on this one. Let me know that you're in the room. Say hello. So, yeah. Gotta wait. I'm chomping at the bit here like a horse ready to race. May the word of the Lord race and be glorified. Remember that verse? May the word of the Lord race and be glorified. Cool way to express it, you know. Oh yeah. Give me a sound check as well. Where are you, Jeremy? Okay, we can repeat ourselves because repetition is the mother of learning. So you ready? This is Acts chapter 8, verse 1. It's Saul endorsing his assassination. That is Stephen's assassination. It's Saul endorsing his assassination. Oh, yeah, Saul was endorsing his assassination. Man, so still waiting. Hang on. Sound check, sound check. Hello, anyone? If you are hearing the sound of my voice, you are the sound checker. Grace to you and peace from God our Father. And this is the Ace Theo channel. Listen, whenever you're watching one of the shows, if something strikes your fancy about any of these shows, be sure and leave comments down in the comment section, just say, I like verse 21 or whatever you have to say, or I disagree with your take on verse 21 or whatever, because, and also give a thumbs up to the show. That would help out. The algorithms seem to love that. Even if you want to give a thumbs down, go ahead and give a thumbs down. That would be okay too. You ready? Been waiting 6 minutes for Jeremy to show up. Where is he? So while we're waiting, I'll tell you what I can do. I'll read the sermon that Stephen preached to those Jews. Just for posterity's sake, it's not what I have my point of this show, but we'll go ahead and start there. So Stephen averred to them, saying, men, brethren, and fathers, here the God of glory was seen by our father Abraham, being in Mesopotamia, ere he dwelt in Charan, and said to him, come out of your land and from your relationships and come hither into the land which I should be showing you. Hey, that's kind of like what the theme of today's little show. Come out of your land, get the hell out. Anyway, then coming out of the land of the Chaldeans, he dwells in Charan, and thence, after the death of his father, he exiles him into this land. Another point about being exiled. Exiles him into this land in which you are now dwelling, and he does not give him any allotment to enjoy. He does not give him any allotment to enjoy in it, nor even a platform for his foot. And he promises to give it to him for a tenure, and to his seed after him, there being no child of his. Yet God speaks thus, and his seed shall be an enjoyer in an alien land, and they shall be enslaved, and they shall enslave it and ill-treat it 400 years. And the nation, for whatsoever they should be slaving, shall I judge, said God. And after these things they shall be coming out and offering divine service to me in this place. And he gives him the covenant of circumcision, and thus he begats Isaac and circumcised him on the 8th day, and Isaac Jacob, and Jacob the 12 patriarchs. And the patriarchs being zealous for Joseph, being jealous of Joseph, I said zealous, that would be funny. The patriarchs being jealous of Joseph gave him up into Egypt, and God was with him and extricates him out of all of his affliction and gives him his favor and wisdom in front of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and constitutes him as governor over Egypt and over his whole house. And now a famine came to be on the whole of Egypt and Canaan, and the affliction was great. Now a famine, this is kind of like what I wanted to talk about now. Famine came to be on the whole of Egypt and Canaan, and the affliction was great, and our fathers found no provender. Now Jacob, hearing that there are stores of grain in Egypt, delegates our fathers first, and in the second time Joseph is made renown to his brothers, and Joseph's race became apparent to Pharaoh. Now Joseph, dispatching them, calls for Jacob his father, and the entire relationship among the 75 souls. And Jacob descended into Egypt, and he deceased, he and our fathers, and they were transferred to Shechem and placed in the tomb, which Abraham purchases for a price in silver from the sons of Hamor. Now, as the time of the promise which God avows to Abraham drew near, the people grew and were multiplied, until a different king rose in Egypt, who had not been acquainted with Joseph. This one, dealing astutely with our race, ill-treats the fathers, causing their babies to be exposed, that they should not live. Hi, Michael Knotts. Welcome. That they should not live in an era in which Moses was born and was handsome even to God, who was reared 3 months in the home of his father. Now, at his being exposed, Pharaoh's daughter lifts him up and rears him for herself for a son. And Moses was trained in all the wisdom of the Egyptians, yet was powerful in his words and works. Now his 40-year time was completed. It came onto his heart to visit his brethren, the sons of Israel. And perceiving someone being injured, he succors him and does the avenging of him who is harried, smiting the Egyptian. Now he inferred that his brethren understood that God, through his hand, is giving salvation to them, yet they do not understand. Besides, on the ensuing day, he was listening by them, and they are fighting, and he interceded with them for peace, saying, "Men, brethren are you? Why is it that you are injuring one another?" Yet he who is injuring his associate thrust him away, saying, "Who constitutes you a chief and a justice over us? You do not want to dispatch me in the manner you dispatched the Egyptian yesterday, huh?" Now Moses fled at this word and became a sojourner. See, he fled. Wow, building up here. He fled at this word and became a sojourner in the land of Midian, where he begats 2 sons. And at the completion of 40 years, a messenger was seen by him in the wilderness of Mount Sinai in the flame of a thorn bush fire. Now Moses, perceiving it, marvels at the vision. Yet at his approaching to consider it, the voice of the Lord came. "I am the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham and Isaac and Jacob." Now Moses, coming to be in a tremor, dared not consider it. Now the Lord said to him, "Loose the sandals from your feet, for the place on which you stand is holy land." In perceiving, I perceive the ill treatment of my people who are in Egypt, and their groaning I hear, and I descend to extricate them. And now come hither, that I should be dispatching you into Egypt. Oh, I heard someone come in, but they're not there now. This Moses, whom they disown, verse 35, saying, "Who constitutes you a chief and a justice over us?" This one God has commissioned to be a chief as well as a redeemer, a justice with the hand of the messenger who was seen by him in the thorn bush. This man led them out, doing miracles and signs in the land of Egypt and the Red Sea and in the wilderness 40 years. This is the Moses who says to the sons of Israel, "A prophet will God be raising up to you from among your brethren as me." This is he who came to be in the ecclesia in the wilderness with the messenger who speaks to him in Mount Sinai, and with our fathers, who receives the living oracles to give to you, whom our fathers are not willing to become obedient, but they thrust him away and turned to Egypt in their hearts, saying to Moses, "Make us gods who will go before us." For this Moses is the man who led us out of the land of Egypt, and we are not aware what became of him. They make a calf in those days and led up the the sacrifice to the idol, and they make merry with the works of their hands. Now God turns and gives them up to be offering divine service to the host of heaven, according as it do not offer, do not offer. And you took up the tabernacle of Moloch, him, and according as he speaks to Moses and makes it according to the model which he had seen, which also our fathers who succeeded him with Joshua led into the tenure of the nations, whom God thrust out from the face of our fathers till the days of David, who found favor before God. Hang on a second. Gotta close the door. He found favor before God, and he requests that he may find a tabernacle for the God of Jacob. Yet Solomon builds to him a house. But the Most High is not dwelling in what is made by hands, according to as the prophet is saying, heaven is my throne, yet the earth is a footstool for my feet. What kind of house will you build for me? The Lord is saying, or what is the place of my stopping? Is it not my hand that does all these things? Stiff-necked and uncircumcised in your heart and ears, you are ever clashing with the Holy Spirit, as your fathers also. Which of the prophets do not your fathers persecute? And they kill those who announce before concerning the coming of the just one, and of whom now you became traitors and murderers, who got the law for a mandate of messengers and do not maintain it. Now, hearing all these things, they were harrowed in their heart and gnashed their teeth at Stephen. And possessing the fullness of faith and Holy Spirit, looking intently into heaven, Stephen perceived the glory of God and Jesus standing at the right hand of God, and said, hang on a second. Okay, standing at the right hand of God, now crying with a loud voice, they pressed their ears and rushed on him with one accord, and casting him outside of the city, they pelted him with stones. And the witnesses, putting off their garments at the feet of a young man called Saul, and they pelted Stephen with stones while he is invoking and saying, Lord Jesus, receive my spirit. Now kneeling, he cries with a loud voice, Lord, thou shouldest not stand against them this sin. And saying this, he was put to repose. All right. So I'm guessing Jeremy got distracted, so he won't be joining us. Ready? Here's what I wanted to talk about. Yet Saul was endorsing his assassination. Now, in that day, there came to be a great persecution of the ecclesia, which is in Jerusalem, and they were all dispersed among the districts of Judea and Samaria, save the apostles. In other words, the apostles stayed behind. But the rest of the church, they hightailed it out of there. So what inspired my little thought was that I was watching some forecasting videos, some commentators on current economics and such, and what we're facing in the future. And there's such trouble going on in many aspects of the world in economics and finance and laws and things that aren't even laws. They're just statutes, They're not even technically laws, but it could be that we should not be so attached to our possessions that we can't leave in the middle of the night. Because the saints here in Jerusalem, a great persecution of the ecclesia popped up out of nowhere after they killed Stephen. Man, they tasted blood. They wanted more. So great persecution, and they were all dispersed. The districts, and they all dispersed among the districts of Judea and Samaria, save the apostles. So they hightailed it out of there, and they couldn't be attached to their possessions. So the title of the show here is, should the church have a yard sale? Should the ecclesia of God, the church which is his body, or even anybody, consider divesting your attachments to your things, because things happen. Anyway, in 1 Timothy chapter 6, Paul says, now devoutness with contentment is great capital. For nothing do we carry into the world, and it's evident that neither can we carry anything out of the world. Now, having sustenance and shelter, with these things be sufficed. Now, those intending to be rich are falling into a trial and a trap. Can you walk away from even your mortgage if they tell you that you must get a vegetable jab and you know that it might damage your health? Or they tell you got to get this thing, and or else you won't be able to you won't be able to continue with your job. But then if you get the damage from the glorious B jab, you still will be damaged and you won't be able to work. It's happening to people. Now, those intending to be rich are falling into a trial and a trap, and many foolish and harmful desires, which are swamping men in extermination and destruction. For a root of all the evils is the fondness for money and all that money can buy, which some, craving, were led astray from the faith, and they tried themselves on all sides. Now, you, O man of God, flee from these things, yet pursue righteousness, devoutness, faith, love, and with endurance and suffering and meekness, and contend the ideal contest, and get hold of life, Eonian, for which you were called, and you avow the ideal avow in the sight of many witnesses. So there. Hi, Jeremy.
Hey.
So my point in pointing these two things out, that there was a great persecution of the first century church in Jerusalem and that area, the districts of Judea and Samaria, they all had to split in the middle of the night. So we shouldn't be married to the things of this world. And there are a lot of people that, right now, I don't know if you know this, but the mortgage moratorium is done and the rent moratorium is done, and there are people getting knocks on their door, getting evicted. So it's not just one thing. It's a lot of things going on out there in the world that are complicated, and as long as, I've said before on this channel and with some of the brothers that I believe that the mega churches that we have today are a clear, direct result of central bank financing. And during the Great Depression of the 1930s, you wouldn't find a big name preacher preaching the riches and the wealth bullshit that we see with Kenneth Copeland and Joel Osteen and those guys. They had a big audience of people who were going through the Great Depression. What was the message they were preaching? It couldn't be, believe in the Lord and you'll get rich. Man, there's plenty of stuff in the New Testament that, like right here where we just read, devoutness with contentment. That's what really is great capital. For in nothing do we carry into the world, and it's evident that neither can we carry anything out. So I'm suggesting that maybe we should have a yard sale, so you wouldn't have so much stuff in your garage, right, Jeremy, that you can walk away from.
Oh, yeah. Tons.
That's it.
That's it.
That's it. When I was in the church in Isla Vista, we had a church-wide yard sale. And we put an ad in the paper that said, our bondage is your pleasure. Come and get it. And
Wow.
not that we were actually more spiritual than anybody else, but at least we did have that experience of understanding that possessions are not the real goal here. The goal is to have a mild and quiet life. Devoutness with contentment is great capital. Speechless, huh?
Saying some strange and hard to understand things here. Man, without capital, without money, man, you can't eat, you can't live.
Supposedly. But as my mama said, where there's a will, there's a way. So when the church in Jerusalem was persecuted, how were they going to survive? They survived by getting the hell out of there, and somehow God took care of them. While I was waiting for you, I went ahead and read Stephen's sermon to those Pharisees, and there was one example after another of people who had to walk away from it all in this sermon.
Wow.
Abraham had to walk away from it all. Moses had to walk away from it all.
Wow, that's right.
The Jews had to leave Egypt and spend time in the desert.
Wow. True.
Anyway, so
I wonder if that's a common, yeah. And then, wow. And when things get more civilized, you've got Abraham in the desert. He has to walk away from that. Kind of a similar thing with Moses, but again, kind of empire-ish, still a little bit more rudimentary than what we have now. But still, I think every believer's life, I think this Christian antichrist system religion that poses and presents itself as Christ, that we all get tangled up in, because we're looking, it's just like, damn, here they say here he is, in this place, and these people know how to get to him. And you're sincere, you're looking, so you just came out of this physical without knowing too much about anything spiritual, no understanding, and you find yourself there. But I think it's there by design. So eventually you too have to leave that thing. You have to pick up and leave all that work and all those wonderful people that have your trust and your loyalty, that give when you ask them to give, and that you've prayed for so many of their family members, all that stuff. Man, that's a modern day Abraham, get out of this desert, or where it's spiritually the same thing, and it hurts and feels the same, I think, emotionally.
So look at this, verse 47. Solomon builds God a house, and God's response is that the Most High is not dwelling in that which is made by hands. Heaven is my throne, yet the earth is my footstool. What kind of house will you build for me? So even, I think maybe metaphorically, we can say that God walks away from it all too. Or he can walk away from it all.
Yeah.
Heaven is my throne and earth is my footstool. What kind of house will you build for me? Or what is the place of my stopping? So
it's funny. You remember that guy that said, anyways, he said something, he'd critiqued or something. He was really getting onto something about God's house and all of that. But you can go, and he mentioned the church fathers. That's right, the early church fathers. Who was that? Arctic Wolf or something? I think maybe. But there's some other early church writers that say that when Constantine was finally when Constantine was actually getting ready to incorporate Christianity completely, he basically, at that point, he was taking things over, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
Yeah, he was becoming an imposter. So when you're talking about as far, I lost my train of thought when my daughter came up here. Help me out.
um,
Because now I'm thinking, where is she going? That's what's going through my mind. I'm rattling through all of that as I'm out on the back porch. But anyways, go ahead. Help me.
well, there are some people who are leaving so-called civilized countries like Australia because the lockdowns are so abusive there. They've looked at it like a situation where some of the smart ones in Germany in the 1930s got the hell out of there, and weren't they smart?
Yeah.
So, um, and even in this country, it might be smart to get out of certain cities that are just eat up with bureaucratic bullshit and regulation and statutes and you know and for example, in California, I've heard that one of the reasons that we have a supply chain problem and that is that in California you can't drive a truck, one of those 18 wheelers, unless it's a brand new truck, a green energy truck. And you can't be an owner operator. They have severely limited the amount of trucking capacity with that stupid law, and that's why there's some 100 tanker ships off the coast that can't unload because there's no way to unload them because there's so few trucks allowed in California. So we have these crazy things going on all over. Is it time to have a yard sale and scoot out of town? Because the saints of God, whether it was the Jews or the believers in Jerusalem, they knew there was a great persecution of the ecclesia in Jerusalem, and they were all dispersed among the districts of Judea and Samaria, except for the apostles. They hightailed it out of there at the drop of a sword.
Now, was this when they hightailed it out of there? Is this within, when was this happening? In the middle of Acts or after?
Yeah, this is Acts chapter 8. Stephen had just been assassinated.
Right.
Saul was endorsing his assassination, and that didn't satisfy him. He wanted more blood.
Yeah.
They knew it, and they got the hell out of there.
Yeah, and Saul, so, and you do, I mean, I saw some history on Saul and everything, but, you know, like when we look at our news and our political environment here, it's kind of, you know, he was a figure to be reckoned with. He was out in the public. You know, they didn't have TV and everything, but word got around. I mean, he traveled the land. He was eager, you know, to take the bull by the horns here and stamp out this whole movement that he really, really, really believed was against his God. Ooh, that's kind of scary, isn't it?
Anyway, so you don't need a garage full of stuff. You can even walk away from that damn mortgage if you have to. You need to, the realization is that 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 6, that now devoutness with contentment, that is what is truly great capital. For nothing do we carry into the world, and it's evident that neither can we carry anything out. Now, having sustenance and shelter, with these we shall be sufficed. Now, those intending to be rich are falling into a trial and a trap. And we have a whole world, especially America, who believes they can be rich if they just keep up their 401k and keep investing in Amazon, Microsoft, and Tesla. And buy some Bitcoin, of course.
Yeah.
Now, those intending to be rich are falling into a trial and a trap. And the many foolish and harmful desires which are swamping men in extermination and destruction. So, you know, they get sucked into that bubble of finance. For a root of all the evils is the fondness for money, which some craving are led astray from the faith and tried themselves on all sides with much pain. Now you, man of God, flee from these things, yet pursue righteousness, devoutness, faith, love, with endurance and suffering and meekness. Contend the ideal contest of the faith. Get hold of Ionian life for which you were called, and you avow the ideal avowal in the sight of many witnesses.
Yeah. I do remember now how this whole no possession thing and it being the character of God, and of course, you can't have a house for him, but there's some old history where they actually have some of the things that the brothers that were alive back in that time would say to the soldiers when Constantine was trying to stamp it out, because they had no meeting place, no official building or headquarters. And they would ask, where is this God of yours? Where is he? Where's his headquarters at? What building, basically? And they would repeat things like, what building? Well, I mean, it would have to be, and they would have some exaggerated, like miles and miles high, cubics high ceiling with vastness that reaches it would have to have, a girth for the main wall that goes, and they make fun of that.
Okay, and as if it wasn't apparent that the dispersion was serious in verse 1, and the persecution wasn't serious enough. Verse 3 says, now Saul devastated the ecclesia, going into the homes and dragging out both men and women. He gave them over to jail.
That's brutal. Can you imagine your kids being ripped out of the house? Your wife? Wow, scary stuff. With the state on his arm, of that nation. I mean, the priesthood, they were pretty, they were the last say, weren't they? Weren't they the law?
Yeah. They were the statute givers, huh?
I mean, they were the ones that, they like the execution happened, with their thumbs up and thumbs down. Like if you brought your cheating wife to them, when they give her something to drink and she either died or she didn't cheat or something like that.
All right. I want to exit stage right. So keep in mind, the point of this little episode here is that you shouldn't be attached to your possessions. You should feel free to leave it behind and perhaps even scoot out of your city or scoot out of your country. Because, some countries are nuts. Some cities are nuts. And it just makes sense to hightail it out of there when they're nuts. Okay. Thank you, Jeremy, for joining me.
Sure. It's fun.
Grace to you.
Same.